what I'll walk you through now is really the daily planner, the daily tracker that I've used, as I mentioned just before, on a daily basis since about 2016 to 2017 now, so about 7 years or so. And there's been multiple kind of variations and multiple different versions of this tool, but I still find it extremely useful to use on a regular basis. And as we mentioned previously, in terms of your weekly planning, you may already have a weekly planner, you might already have a daily planner. If you do, fantastic. This isn't intended to change what you already do, but it might enhance, it might add to some of the things that you do already. So I'm just going to walk you through how I use this personally, how I find it really beneficial. And as I mentioned already, if you wanted to take all of it, if you want to take some of it, you get to choose, and I will simply walk you through what the possibilities are for you, so you can start using this. So I should be able to share my iPad now. Could you just give me a number 2 in the chat box if you can see the iPad screen, please? Just a number 2 in the chat box if you see the iPad screen. Excellent. All right, perfect. So this is the daily planner that I use, and the first thing I will say is I will pre-frame this 100% by saying that the daily planner is effective, but only effective to about 75% if I am also clear on my weekly goals, my monthly goals, or quarterly goals. I normally do quarterly rather than monthly. If I'm clear on my quarterly goals, and if I'm clear on my bigger goals, not just in terms of business, but in different areas of life as well. And so we'll talk about that in a separate video. But on this occasion, I'm simply going to walk through what this looks like on a daily basis. So every single day, because it is a totally blank template, it gives me the chance to come in and use it on a daily basis. Naturally, I'll put the date in here. That's all pretty safe, simple, pretty straightforward. The day of the week, and then where I am. And the only reason I used to put where I am is because I would travel a lot for events, and we'd be in various different countries and such. It doesn't happen so much anymore. A lot more is now online, but that used to be very relevant in terms of where I am. What I've started doing that is just a general sort of check-in at the start of the day of where I am, in the sense of, is it a good day? Or does it feel like a good day when I wake up? So is it a 9 today? Is it a 2 today? How am I feeling generally about the day, and kind of what's my, like, where am I in that sort of sense on a day-to-day basis? And for some reason now, just as we've hooked all this up, the pen isn't working. Yes, it is. Okay, good. Or is it? Yes, it is. Okay, so where am I? Could also be on a scale of 1 to 10. So the key areas, well, I personally focus on the kind of 3 areas of life, or 3 main areas of life, which we've talked about before. One being wealth, one being health, and one being relationships, or some people might call happiness, is the other one that it's described as. So wealth, health, and happiness, or health, wealth, happiness, relationships. But the reason I have relationships is because I also have joy and fun as an additional box. And those 3 areas generally focus in on individual areas. So under wealth, I would categorize that as being a business in terms of how the business is doing. I categorize that in terms of my personal finance, but then also, am I on course with my mission, or what I see as like the bigger picture or the purpose? Some people believe in that, some people don't, but that's okay. It's something that I like to use as well. Under health, that goes 3 parts. So mind, body, and soul. Mind, obviously, in terms of my or for me personally, that's sort of mental learning, growth, acquiring new knowledge, new information, and such. Body, physical activities, and then soul, some spiritual connection. And again, everybody has various different beliefs on that. That's okay. And you can use that in the way that is best fitting for you. Relationships then comes down to friends, family, and then romance. So those 3 core areas for relationship. And then joy and fun. I simply have that as a totally separate category because I would like to think that there are things that I can just identify that I absolutely love doing. It doesn't have to be related to a specific goal or target or anything like that. It's just something that I would like to do, perhaps a bucket list item that I could go through and engage in. On the left-hand side, I have what would be called ongoing pursuits. So in other words, these are generally my longer-term targets. So my longer-term focus, my longer-term targets, that's the ones I will put on the left-hand side. So they might be, for example, my annual goals. So my goal for the year, let's say, with my physical body, I don't know, some ridiculous, it might be something like I would like to run a marathon in under 4 hours, for example. I have no desire to run a marathon in under 4 hours, but I'm just giving an example, which is pretty easy to track. It's pretty easy to see whether I'll be able to do it or not. It's, it's a smart target, which we've talked about in separate videos. My mission goal, for example, might be to, let's say, to reach and teach, I don't know, 100,000 people before the end of the year, okay, by 2025, for example, okay? So they are your bigger goals, and they're generally the things that are keeping you, if you think about like a plane traveling from one destination to the other, it's like that analogy that 95% of the time the plane generally isn't on course, but it constantly needs tweaking, adjusting, amending, adjusting, and tweaking and such. But as a general guide, you know where you want to go, you know what the bigger goal is, you know what the bigger target is. And so these are quarterly or annual goals that I will be setting. And again, they are smart. Now, the one thing that I would add to that is that you might not set goals currently in all these different areas of life. You might not set goals in your finances, or hopefully you do in finance and business. That's why we're here. You might not set them in with your family, for example, or with friends, or with romance, or with your physical health, or your mental, all these different types of things. Hopefully you do, but you may not. So my suggestion would always be start with what you know and let what you know grow. If you have very clear ideas about your business goals, great, let's start with those. If you have very clear ideas about your physical goals, great, let's start with that. If you have clear ideas about your romance goals or relationship goals, perfect. Start with those things. But of course, for us, whilst we're doing this together, then I'm naturally going to hope that there are going to be some, that's supposed to be a tick, by the way. I'm hopeful that there are going to be some business goals, of course, and I'm very hopeful and expectant, in fact, that there's going to be some wealth and finance goals as well. Okay, so that will be the first thing I would mention. If you're doing this digitally, what I tend to do is I have these pre-written. So these are already written in. So every single quarter, I might update them, but these are already pre-written in on this side, on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, these ones are much more short-term, okay? So using the very simple analogy, let's say that marathon example, if I want to run a marathon in 4 hours and I've never run a marathon before, my goal by the end of the month, for example, so end of month goal, might be to join a running club, okay? That might be my simple goal. Join a running club and do 3 runs. Something very, very simple. So I'm not getting swamped by the bigger goal or the bigger thing that I'm looking to achieve. Instead, I could focus on, well, actually, rather, that's my big goal. That's where I'm heading. But how do I know if I'm on track? How do I know if I'm on course? Like that idea of lead and lag goals, which I won't go into too much right now, but shorter term goals, what does that look like for me, say, by the end of the week, by the end of the month? Something effectively, which is a lot more short term and a lot more manageable to achieve. And I can, again, see that I've achieved it and see that I've hit it. So again, with your the example up here, if we'd say reach and teach 100,000 people by end of 2025 or by the start of 2025, then it might be this end of this quarter, it might be that my goal is to hit somewhere, let's say between, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 people, as an example. That's not a goal that I have, but just to give you an idea. So 15 to 20,000, I'm not trying to get the full quarter because I'm expecting that as I get better at this, that the results are going to ramp up. So I'm looking to have a meaningful chunk that I'm going to be hitting within the next 2 to 3 weeks or by the end of the quarter. Okay, so that's what the start of the day looks like. And to give an idea, as I mentioned before, generally this side down here, let's color code these. Generally this side down here is pre-filled. This is very likely pre-filled at the start of each quarter. So all these goals are already in there. Okay. So my joy and fun, for example, for last year was to go to Glastonbury Festival, which I did. It was amazing. One for this year is to go deep sea fishing and swimming with sharks, which I would be very excited about. It's not everybody's thing, but I would really like to do it. Next year is to go to the cricket in Australia on Boxing Day. So again, that's kind of like the joy fun where it doesn't have to be any set targets. These are just things that I'd like to do myself or with my family and such. They're usually preset. These ones on the right-hand side are ones that I would write on a daily basis. So again, I'll just make a note of that for you. But these ones on the right-hand side are generally ones that I will write on a daily basis. And the idea being, naturally, the more frequently you write your goals, anybody that studied any type of goal setting and such will know far better than I do, no doubt, the importance of writing your goals down on a frequent basis, keeping them top of mind, having them consciously and subconsciously working for you all the time. And then naturally, the more you are aware of them and the more aligned you are with your goals, then things start to appear. It's almost as if by magic that these things are appearing to help you on your quest to achieve those goals in different areas of life. So that's generally the start of the day, or one of the first things that I'll do. It then goes into 5 points of gratitude, so things that I'm grateful for. This is one of the things that Tony Robbins does on a daily basis. I know there's a lot of people that will do this on a daily basis, but I generally try to make at least one of them very, very small, like very small, very basic, to the point where Tony Robbins talks about the idea of simply being able to enjoy, walking in fresh air, for example, or the smell of fresh flowers, something like that. So generally, things that a bigger thing that I might be grateful for have to be very specific, and then I'll try to make at least one of those something which is very small, not like a huge wow factor, or not perceived as a wow factor, but just to kind of appreciate those smaller things, if you like. I personalize the next step. So these are my major messages for 2024. I will already say right now, if somebody's watching a recording of this in 2025 and 2026, this is not out of date, because I do this every year. And I have a guarantee that for anybody watching this in the future, I'll still be doing this. So major messages for 2024. Now, I have to say that these are pre-written as well. And the reason that these are pre-written is because these were planned over Christmas, around December, January time. And that came from, without going into too much detail, but just to give you a quick reflection on that, the way that I decide what my major things are for me personally to as a general focus over the course of the year is I look at my calendar from last year. So I literally pick up my Google Calendar and I go through my Google Calendar for the whole year, and I look at what were the top 20% of things that gave me the most joy, and what were the top 20% of things that gave me the most frustration or drained my energy. And then I purely focus on, how do I go and get more of those things in my life? How do I go and ensure that I can do more of that top 20%? And how do I put things in place, not dropping the ball, but how do I put processes, systems, people in place so that I can remove some of that friction from the bottom 20%? And so as I looked through my calendar last year, obviously there will have been a number of things that came up for me where a great deal of joy came around these core areas. And for me, those core areas for this particular year, and again, you don't necessarily have to dive in and do all this today, but I just want to give you a framework because this can certainly work going forward. So one of them is just to be physical, looking after my body, food, nutrition, sleep, mobility, exercise, and such. And then I make a note of how I am intending to do that on that particular day. Okay, so how am I going to do this today? What is the one thing that I'm going to do about this today? So it might be going to the gym, going for a run. It might be skipping, I don't know, skipping or having a meat-free day, for example. Any of those types of things, whatever it might be, then that would be, I write down how I'm going to achieve that thing today. The next one that I use is getting outdoors. So again, that's been a big thing for me, getting outdoors in nature. How do I do that? And I make a plan around that as well. Getting social, joining a club, network, reconnecting with friends. Again, that was in the top 20% of my joy last year. So I want to find more opportunity to do that. How am I going to do it? And how do I do it specifically today? And then getting help. I find a great deal of pleasure in learning new things, consistently learn new things, and then implementing them. It's always the best way for me is to learn something and then do it almost straight away, or teach it soon after, because then it sticks for me and hopefully it's beneficial for other people as well. So this, again, for you can be pre-written. You don't have to use this part. You can scrap it. You can add it into your existing practice, whatever you choose. I really don't mind. I just want to offer some suggestions that have been helpful for me. But because I have those as an overall theme, I can quickly see, well, am I on course? Am I looking after my body? Am I getting help? Am I asking for help? Am I continuing to learn, or am I neglecting some of those things? So I can kind of realign on a daily, or if not weekly basis. Highest priority actions for today. So we've seen this in terms of setting about our goals for the week. And then what are my highest priority actions for today? So based on my weekly actions and my weekly targets, what are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you could do today? And generally, I would say between 3 and 5 priority actions. Okay, so whatever you're working on right now, these would come in as your priority actions for that specific day. So we've talked about what your weekly priority actions are in a separate video. Now you can see here are your daily priority actions. Quote for the day, I would put in here. So if you have a particular quote that you want to keep reflecting on, or that comes to you, or whatever that might be, then I like to put one in there. And then I also have space for a 5-minute journal. Do I normally use this? Well, sorry, do I always use this? No. Does it always have to be 5 minutes? No. Sometimes it's just 30 seconds. Sometimes it's just if you need to get things out of your mind and onto paper quite quickly. So either way, the option is there for the 5-minute journal. All of those things to this point, all of the above happens in the morning. It is AM. It happens in the morning. Okay, so all those things happen in the morning. Everything beyond there happens in the evening or in the end of the day. And so these are questions that I ask myself, and this is a culmination of many people's journals, daily logs, and such that I've found useful over time and have refined personally over time as well. So these are questions that I ask myself at the end of each day. If you're looking at this and thinking, Jake, this sounds like a lot, how do I start to incorporate all this? Genuinely, what I would do, if you really want to streamline it, is I would find a way to write down at least one goal in each of these 4 areas. I'm going to say 4 because I don't want you to miss out the joy side. So I would find a way to write down at least one goal in each of these areas for your wealth, your health, your relationships, and your joy. And then I would skip straight through to once you've set your goals for the day, then checking in how effectively you've been able to accomplish those things that you may have been working towards. So the very first part at the top here is, have I planned my day for tomorrow? And so I generally find that the best practice for me to plan tomorrow is at the end of the day. And so if there are specific things that I need to follow up on, items that didn't get done for any reason, conversations I need to have, whatever that might be, then I will put those in here ready to address the next day. Learning log, ideally, I'm looking to identify at least one new thing that I've learned. That might be personal, that might be business, that might be relationship-wise, but in any of those 9 different areas of life, 10, if you include joy, any of those 10 different areas of life, then I want to note down. It's very important that I actually note down what I've learned that particular day. Something new, so anything new that I've learned that day, I include here as well. When I worked as a teacher, I was very fortunate to be the director of teaching and learning. So I was the one responsible for basically teaching and learning across the whole school. And that allowed me to go and watch all the other teachers deliver their lessons, on a kind of a I don't know, monthly basis or something, which was amazing because there was so much good practice. There was some not so good practice as well, but there was so much good practice that immediately I thought, great, what are all the things that I can steal from this teacher and start using in my own stuff, which was amazing. It was a great position to be in. But then I realized now that that carries forward today as well. So what are the things that you could perhaps steal, $1 million ideas or things that you could steal, maybe 1 or 2 things that you could think that was great. Somebody else did that, or I saw somebody do this today. I'd really like to incorporate that in my practice. What worked? What didn't work? In other words, what were some of the things that I did or tried that were very effective? What were some of the things that I tried that perhaps didn't work and just didn't get the results I was looking for? And come back to that bottom half in just a moment. And then on the right-hand side, I'll go through 7 successes. And again, I'll try and make at least one of these very small. Okay. So that might be a conversation with a friend. And you could argue that's very big. It might be an email that somebody sent to me that was very nice, or an email that I sent to somebody else. It could be something very, very small, even just getting some fresh air in the afternoon, whatever that might be. But generally focusing on 7 successes and things that have gone particularly well in the day. I always find 7. And you know what's incredible is that quite often, if I'm struggling at 3 or 4 and then I get myself to 7, I actually end up around 10. So again, you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to do this at all. But hopefully some of this will be useful for you. You can take away. And I find identifying 7 successes towards the end of the day is very helpful. I asked myself these questions. This is a lot of these questions I would say I've taken from Dr. John Demartini, who I've talked about in various other trainings and such. I've done a lot of his programs and courses and mentorships and such, and found extremely, extremely valuable. So I would recommend taking a look at some of his stuff if you are interested. So he asks a number of these questions. So I thought, well, if it's good enough for him, it's definitely good enough for me. The quality of our life is determined by the quality of the questions that we ask. And so did I count my blessings and focus on being grateful? Did I list and prioritize my actions? Did I act on those? Did I visualize more than 50% of my day? I won't go into too much detail about the power of that, but I think it's extremely powerful. And every time that I write yes, I've generally had a very productive day. Did I share from the heart while speaking? Did I communicate in terms of other people's values? Very important. Even if nothing else comes from this session, the idea this comes all the way back to people buy what they want, not what we think they need. And people always spend money in line with their highest values. Always. They will always continue to spend money in line with their highest values, which is why our offer is always for our ideal client. It's not for us, it's for our ideal client. Because if we can give people what they want, then we can get everything that we want in return. Did I write at least one thank you letter? Did I grow and accelerate my wealth? Did I use super productive time? There are 3 types of time. We talked about this in the workshop. The first is unproductive time when you're working on other people's goals. The second is productive time when you're working on your own goals. And the third is super productive time when you have other people working on your goals. In other words, an outsourcer, a team member, whatever that, whoever that may be, however you extend that. But did I use super productive time today? Did I have other people working on my goals? Am I closer or complacent when it comes to my overall target, purpose, vision, mission? You choose the word that's most suitable for you. Tony Robbins tracks these 2 things. He tracks his emotions on a daily basis. He also tracks the food that he eats. And so again, I thought, well, if it's good enough for him, then it's certainly good enough for me. I try to identify areas where there's been great abundance in that day. And then I also try to read something every day and just track what I may have read, even if it was just 5 pages of a book, but always try to track that as well. Finally, the thought quotation for the day. If I've had any additional thoughts, or we did have a quote earlier on, but if I've had anything additional that has come to me that's really stuck with me, then I'd like to include that. And then you've seen me talk about this before. The additional question I have always at the end of the day is, what did I do today that allows me to make money tonight? And very often, if you're coming at this for the first time, then that's generally a question that in some ways it almost doesn't. In some ways, it might feel like it doesn't align with everything else in here. But it's such an important question. Warren Buffett talks about if you don't learn to make money while you sleep, then you will continue to work for money for the rest of your life. And even if you don't have an answer to that in the initial stages, just the fact that that question is there, so long as we don't overlook it, then it gives you the opportunity to be able to say, yes, you know what, these are the things that I did. It might be an email that you sent to your audience. It might be a certain post that you sent. It might be 3 or 4 messages and proposals that you sent to people. It might be a conversation that you had with somebody who's going to, take a look at it later in the day. Whatever that might be. But what did you do today that allows you to make money tonight? The opportunity to wake up in the morning and not be bombarded by social media messages and other people's priorities, but the opportunity to wake up in the morning and have notifications on your phone to say you've just received money. That is the goal. Or certainly that is the goal in terms of us building the business. And then the final section, would be any other notes, anything else that is relevant. And generally, this is where I will bring down any final to-dos, anything else that didn't quite get done on that day that then needs to go into tomorrow. And then the whole process repeats all over again on a daily basis. I am definitely an 80% type of person with most of this. So do I do it every day? No, I would say 80% of the time I will do this. In terms of how long it takes me to do, generally, when you get in the flow, it's actually very fast. So as I mentioned earlier, this left-hand side in green is pre-filled because I already know what those goals are for the quarter or for the year because I've having set that earlier, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. But the right-hand side generally is quite quick. I would say it's probably less than 2 minutes to write these things down. Maybe not even that, maybe less than 60 seconds to have them down. Even if I'm writing them down in note form because I know what they are off the top of my head, then they go down straight away. Gratitude section might take a minute or so. This generally, because I'm looking at my day and planning how am I including those things that I've said are important to me and I want to include, again, probably about a minute or so. Priorities, this takes a little bit longer, but that's okay because if you spend 5 minutes here, it could literally save you 1 or 2 hours later in the day. If you know what your highest priority actions are to hit your bigger goals, it could save you hours of time. So I would generally spend a little bit longer on that. The quote doesn't take too long. The journal, it's up to you, maximum 5 minutes. And then the end of the day, I would say this generally takes me about 10 minutes. So between 5 and 10 minutes. If I don't complete the whole thing, again, you will find a flow with this if you choose to use this. But if I don't complete the whole thing, I will always do my successes because I always want to identify the success, even if it feels like it's been a really tough day, stressful day, even if it doesn't feel good at the end of the day, if things feel like they've gone wrong, I still want to be able to find the wins and the successes. These questions are very quick to answer, so I will always answer those questions as well. Generally, I'll try and look at what worked and what didn't work. I think just because it's me, I'll always write down what I ate. And then, oops. And then I'll try and always answer this question at the end. What did I do today that allows me to make money tonight? Okay, so that is the overview of the daily journal that I use. As I say, I've used variations of it for the past, or since 2017, 16, 17. So what I'll do is I'm going to make a version of this available for you. I'll just stop sharing the screen for a moment. And when we share this, there will be a link in and around the video so you can go and access it. This is what it looks like here. There we go. Yep, you can see that there. So this is what it looks like. We'll put the video of how to use this next to it, but here is what it looks like. So you can access a digital version. I'll also make sure that there's a variation that you can edit as well, so you can download and such, and be able to tap into.